Hi everyone, my name is Sophia and today I'm here to talk about my May wrap-up. First, I want to make sure that everyone is aware of the riots and the recent murder of George Floyd and so many other black people that are also being arrested and murdered during these riots in the United States and in Brazil, my country. We need to make sure that you're donating if you can, you're signing all the petitions because they don't take any time, you're paying attention, you're looking at what the people are saying, you're looking at the videos, you're aware of the police brutality that's going on all over the world, and that you're trying to make a change. It's not enough to be not racist, we need to be anti-racist, and we must stand up against the system for our black peers. Also, recognize and use your privilege, and I'm trying to use my privilege as somebody with 90 subscribers to try and get at least one more person to sign a petition or donate something. This channel for me and reading is a means of escape and of turning my mind off external problems, but we cannot turn our mind off on this external problem. That's why I mentioned it here. But still, I think we need to have a little bit of comfort sometimes to not go insane with these news. And that's what I'm trying to do here, just provide myself a little bit of comfort in the midst of all this insane last few weeks and days and weeks and months and years. So yeah, let's get right into it. I read 13 books this month. Yes, I know it's kind of a lot, and most of them were very big, which is super weird. Most of them were actually over, not most, like the average pages for this month is really high, and I read 6 high fantasies, 2 thrillers, 1 hard-hitting contemporary, 2 urban fantasies, 1 historical fiction, and 1 dystopia. I also read in this month a total of 6,404 pages, and my average rating for the month was 3.84 stars. The first book I read in May was The Great Hunt by Robert Jordan, followed by The Dragon Reborn, also Robert Jordan, book 2 and 3 in The Wheel of Time. I had a very complicated relationship with book 1. I have a detailed review on Goodreads about why I liked it but also didn't, and this book I actually liked a lot more. I gave the first book 2 stars, the second book, which is this one, 4 stars, and the third book 3 stars. So it's been a mixed bag for me and Wheel of Time, but I don't know, this world is kind of a comfort world for me, even though the story is kind of repetitive. Like there's a chunk in this book that's like the same chunk, like it's the same exact sequence of events but with a different character in book 3, and that kind of gets old for me really fast. But I really enjoyed this book. I think we focused a lot more on Tar Valon and the Aes Sedai, the girls, which are my favorites in this entire series. Now book 3, we had less focus on the girls, more focus on characters I don't care about. I just was overall underwhelmed with such a great sequel that this was. The Great Hunt, 4 stars. The Dragon Reborn, 3 stars. After finishing The Dragon Reborn, I watched the Netflix TV show called Hollywood by Ryan Murphy, starring Darren Criss and a bunch of other people. And so I just had the intense need to reread 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, my favorite standalone of all time. I first read this book in 2018, and I have an annual reread of it every year. Like I read this book at least once a month, and that was it for me. I read this book in May because I just felt the need, watching Hollywood and thinking, oh, but Evelyn Hugo did this and Evelyn Hugo did that. This just had to. This book still holds up, it's still amazing, fantastic, wonderful. Evelyn is tied with somebody else as my favorite character of all time, and I just love her so much. I love this book so much. Next things I read were also rereads, and they were Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson and Hero of Ages by Brandon Sanderson, followed by Secret History by Brandon Sanderson. These are books 2 and 3 of the Mistborn trilogy. Just gonna hold book 2 up. And I also read Secret History, which is 3.5 or also 6.5 depending on who you ask. And they're just phenomenal. I got the graphic audio for this one, and holy shit, they had some really cool music. It's such a different experience on reread, because on the first read you're just completely taken aback by all the revelations and all the characters and where the story's going, because it is such a huge story with twists and turns, and it's amazing. Now on second reread it's just so cool to see all the groundwork Sanderson lay for the direction of the series, and it's just fantastic. Finn is one of my favorite characters of all time. Also, Secret History, by the way. Jumping to Secret History. The middle dragged a little bit. That's why I gave it 4 stars. The other books are obviously 5. People say this book is not as good. It fucking is. It just has a different focus. Mistborn Final Empire is way more, the plot is way more tight, and it has way more of a single goal. And this book is more like a political siege book, and the third book is more of a like, holy shit, the world's ending, what the fuck are we gonna do? And it's wonderful. I just summed the scenes here sobbing. I was sobbing. There are 700 pages each in my edition, and I read both Well of Ascension and Hero of Ages in 2 days because I just could not stop, and they're wonderful and one of my favorite series of all time. Next book I read was not a reread, but it's Dark Places by Gillian Flynn. Gillian Flynn wrote my favorite book of the year so far, which is Gone Girl, that I read in March, and I've been going through her catalog, her backlog, her backlist, that's the word. And this book, it had some of the Gillian Flynn things that I love, which is the awful female main character who has a lot of trauma and doesn't really know how to cope with it, and she has terrible coping mechanisms and she just roots to everybody, and I love it. I actually kind of really liked these 3 perspectives we got here, but actually I liked Ben's the most because it was the most intriguing, even though I really love Libby as a protagonist. But I kind of didn't really like the ending, and the ending kind of flubbed it for me because I liked part of the resolution, but I didn't like the other part of the resolution. But anyways, the movie's terrible. And I just love the way Gillian Flynn writes her protagonist, man. I had a 30-minute crying rant with my therapist about how much it means to me the way Gillian Flynn portrays and the lens she writes them on. Like, she doesn't judge, she just like kind of opens what these traumatized and awful, ugly women open and let us see in it, not judging at all, just showing us and inviting us to get to know them. And she doesn't judge, and it's just such a wonderful perspective, and I love the way she writes female characters, man. I just love it. I gave the book 3.5 stars. Next book I read was a reread, and it's very weird for me. The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. I first read this book in 2018, December 2018. I really liked part 1, or like up until part 1 or part 2 of the book, because it's school setting. School setting is one of my favorite tropes ever. But then the book went in a different direction. At first that really shocked me, and it got me really angry at the book, and so I read the last half of the book with a super negative and angry lens, trying to criticize everything and just trying to hate the book. I finished it, gave it 1 star, even knowing that this book is good. It's objectively good. I just read it trying to hate it, so I decided to pick this one up this year again, because I know that if I just read it on another time without trying to hate it, just letting it be what it is, I would really like it. And that's what happened. I also wrote a more detailed review on Goodreads about my experience with this book, but it's just so good. I gave it 4.5 stars now on second read, which is so weird. But man, this book is hyped for a reason. It's brutal, very well written, character-wise. I think the info dumps could use a little bit of work and descriptions, but it's a debut, and the magic is so much cooler this time around. And this book has some insane points on colonization and oppression, and it's based on real history. If you put like magic, the author says it's a Avatar: The Last Airbender on drugs, and I kind of agree. And it's just a really good book. I'm not gonna link my review. Other videos of mine have the Goodreads link, because I'm just going to link petitions and donation spots on my videos from now on. But if you can like check out my Goodreads on the About section. Next book I read is my favorite book of the month, and it's Ninth House by Lee Verdugo. This book came out like last October, and I got the ebook. I read the first few pages. Wasn't really feeling it, but I knew it's Leigh Bardugo, it's dark school setting, it's Leigh Bardugo, and I had to read it, so I bought it, and I went into it with a completely open mind, and I loved it. 5 stars, automatic. Wow, man, this book, I also have a review for it on Goodreads, but this book is so good. I love the way that it starts, and that it gives us a little bit of Alex at her lowest point, which is like around here on the story, and it shows us that on the prologue, so we get a little bit of information like, oh, this character's not here, this character was stabbed in the leg, and you know, just little bits of information like, oh, this character was bitten. So it's just tiny bits of information, but then we get back to dual timeline, which is winter and fall. And fall is when Alex is learning how to be a member of the House of Lethe, which is Lethe. She kind of supervises the other secret societies in Yale, and she's learning how to do that, and also developing her dynamic with Darlington, which is a fan favorite, and I fucking want to rant about that. But then we also get winter and the present day winter, and Darlington is nowhere to be seen. We don't know what happened to him. Alex does, but we don't. And it's just her trying to solve a murder that might be connected to the secret societies. And it's just so good, so entertaining. I love the resolution for the murder mystery. I love the theme of surviving abuse and the anger of women and oppressed women. Also, the way Leigh Bardugo wrote Alex Stern is similar to the way Gillian Flynn writes her protagonists, which is also why I love this book so much. I love Alex. I love how she's an abuse survivor. She's not outwardly nice. She's extremely complex. She's just completely herself. She has bad coping mechanisms. She is a trauma survivor, but she also doesn't let that rule her life. But it also kind of dictates how she acts sometimes, because that's what her life's been like. And it's told with such a touching and emotional but not judging view on Alex, and that's what I love so much. Also, I hate that Darlington is not even half the chapters Alex is in here, and he's a fan favorite. There, people only mention him in reviews. There's like fan pages dedicated to him. And Alex, which is the fucking main character, which is way more well written just because she's a woman of color, and Darlington is a white boy who has feelings and also grins sometimes. He's a fan favorite. That really irks me, but this book is overall so phenomenal, so amazing, and I loved it. Not for everyone though, I must say. It also has some content warnings, just like Poppy War, but I loved it. Man, I loved it. Love this book. The next book I read was another Gillian Flynn book, and it's Sharp Objects. This concludes my Gillian Flynn reads thing. I read The Grown Up last year and hated it. I read Gone Girl this year in March, and one of my favorite books of all time, favorite book of the year so far. I read Dark Places this month, and now Sharp Objects, and now I don't have any more Gillian Flynn books to read, which is sad. And I really like this book. It's kind of missing some character dynamics that Gone Girl had that I wish this one had more. This is just focused on Camille and her relationship to her family, and yeah, that's most of the focus of this book. Camille is also a Gillian Flynn protagonist in just the way I like it. It's wonderful the way she's written, the way she has so many bad coping mechanisms, but she's allowed to be that. She's allowed to be bad and ugly, and we don't judge her. We understand that's unhealthy, but it's not framed in a way a common narrative would frame it. I love how she's just allowed to be that. I have watched the finale of the TV show before I read this book, but the book does it way better, and I just really like this book. And I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was another one on my streak of dark female protagonists, and it's My Dark Vanessa by Kate Russell Davis. I think that's her name, I don't know, Kate Russell something, was really, 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 really good. I gave it 4.25 out of 5 stars because for me to get 4.5 or more, it has to, I don't know, man, books that deal with hard subjects never do it for me. I never give them 5 stars, even though this book is objectively a 5 stars. It's insanely well written, which I think it's the biggest selling point here, because when you deal with such a hard subject matter, which is a 15-year-old girl having a relationship with a 40-year-old teacher, and all the abuse and trauma that comes with that, and our main character Vanessa not seeing that, and you need the right writer with enough heart to know how to deal with that kind of subject matter, and this writer did beautifully. She handled it the way it needed to be handled. She handled it enough so that we could see the horror, but we could also see the way Vanessa saw all of it, when she starts the book not believing she was a victim of abuse or a survivor of abuse. And it's in alternating timelines nowadays, when more accusations are coming out against the same teacher, and back when she was 15, when her relationship with the teacher started. And it shows all the subtle manipulations and gaslighting in a way that we can see it, and Vanessa can sometimes also kind of see it, but she doesn't believe that's abuse. And she's also thinking, but I consented, doesn't that make me a villain too? And it's just such a good book with the right writer doing all the work to actually make it amazing. Next book I read was Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. I grew up watching the movies. I did not grow up reading the books. I am not sure if I've read this book before, that's why I'm not counting it as a reread, but I love it. I love it. It's just Hogwarts, you know? It's like Hogwarts, and Harry, Ron, and Hermione, and also Hagrid. Fuck Dumbledore. And it's just wonderful. This first book is full of magic and full of wonder, and it's just wonderful. Also, fuck J.K. Rowling. She's a disgusting transphobe and a TERF, which is, if you don't know, trans exclusionary radical feminist. She calls herself a feminist, but she also doesn't believe trans women are women. Go figure. She's a fucking idiot. And she also has so many anti-Semitic and fatphobic comments. She also says she has HIV positive representation in the worst way possible, and she's just an awful person. I can love this book and also recognize that she's an awful person, and recognize that her views affect her art, and fuck J.K. Rowling. Anyways, Harry Potter slaps. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. The last book I read this month is also the worst. Yay me. It's Sythe by Neil Shusterman. I wasn't going to read this ever, I think, because I didn't want to buy it with my own money. But back in my Christmas wish list, I put it in as like the lowest of lows of priorities. And somebody, I think my aunt, bought it for me for some reason. So, because it was cheap. So, I own it. Now I read it because I finished Harry Potter on the 30th of May. So I was like, what book can I finish until midnight in the 31st of May? So Sythe. I read this book in a day and a half. It flies by really quickly. I was loving the first 2 parts. Like, it's divided in 5 parts. I was loving the first 2 parts, even though I was loving the characters, I was loving the concepts and the direction the plot was going. Then the end of part 2 happened, and I hate it. And I just really didn't care for the direction here. The pacing is awful. First we're going this way and it's steady, then we go a completely different way and the pacing is up and down, up and down, up and down. And then we go on a fucking road trip and it gets slow again and it's awful. Also, the writing has no emotion, and that really bothered me. Like, some death scenes and also scenes that were supposed to be romantic or at least emotional in any way were written in such a clinical, dry way that just felt like somebody relaying the facts to you on like a medical sheet. I didn't feel anything while reading this book. The things that were supposed to have hit me hardest, I just read it and I was like, that was so clinical. That was so emotionless. And it's like a robot wrote it. And that's also why I really didn't like some parts here. I overall gave this book 2.5 stars. So yeah, this was my May wrap-up. Don't forget to sign petitions and donate if you can. My name is Sophia, and I'll see you next time. Bye.